Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. It is TowerGate day number 957, November the 14th, 2019, Thursday. Thank you so much for tuning in. Okay, so yesterday was the first day of the public hearings for the Bug-Eyed Fool's Inquisition. And needless to say, I assume most of you have read the reports, maybe watched some of the videos. It was a complete bust, just as we knew it would be, just like everything is with these fools. Now, I don't know how many of you saw Devin Nunes' opening statement, but it is fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. If you haven't seen Devin Nunes' opening statement, it's definitely worth your 5 minutes of your time to watch it, because he lays it out perfectly. It's beautiful. It's a thing of beauty, and you must watch it. But then we also had Jim Jordan, who did a very, very good job. It was a really good idea to put him on that committee for these hearings. Because he literally dismantled the star witness. Just dismantled him. I mean, he went through the facts, and when he got to the end of it, I mean, and he only had like a couple of minutes of questioning, maybe like 2 minutes or something, and that's all it took. It's all it took to do exactly what they did to the other witness, this George Kent. Neither of them had first or even second or even third-hand information that there was anything that was quid pro quo or any crime or anything like that. They both had to admit that the money was given to the Ukrainians. They got the missiles and the military stuff that they wanted, and they never launched an investigation. They got what they wanted, never launched the investigation. Therefore, there could have been no quid pro quo. Very, very simple. And this is the problem. There's nothing there. And even CNN had people on their panel and said that it was a bust. It was a bust. Exactly for the reason I just said. There is no first-hand witness to any crime. There you go. Right there on CNN, there was no first-hand witness to any crime. It was a bust. And that's the two-star witnesses. And if they're going to bring Fiona Hill back, go right ahead. Because there's more information that's come out since she has given her statement. Plus, we now know that she did not mention that she worked with Sharamella. She left that name out. And now that that's come to light, I'm sure that she may be forced to out the name Eric Sharamella in the hearings. I bet they won't bring her back now. Ratcliffe obviously did a hell of a job. In fact, he had a mic drop moment. He literally went through his thing, gets to the end, and says, okay, can either of you show me where there is a misdemeanor, high crime, misdemeanor, anything, anything illegal, anything was done there in that statement? It was wrong. Can you tell me where the crime is in the statement? And they were silent. They were, nope. They're looking at each other like, no. They don't. They have nothing. Now, if these hearings, if tomorrow's hearing goes as bad as today's hearing, Madam Botox just may have to pull the plug on this thing, which means Nadler, the penguin, he would have dropped the ball. He couldn't produce. The Bug-Eyed Fool really couldn't produce. Who's she going to go to next? What committee in the House is she going to go to next? This could be, and again, as I said in the previous video, that would be the wise play for Madam Botox and the Bug-Eyed Fool. That will be the smart play. Because if they do go with the impeachment and have the vote, then they actually have these members of Congress who won seats in red states or where Trump's pretty popular. They would have to actually go on record now for the actual impeachment vote. It would then go to the Senate, where Lindsey Graham has promised that he'll call the whistleblower, where he'll call Hunter Biden, and the whole 9 yards, and that it could drag out for 5-6 weeks, whatever. Well, keep in mind, when there's an impeachment process, all senators are called back. They all have to come back and they have to be there. It's mandatory. It's a rule. Well, how's that affect these senators who are running for the Democratic nomination? Warren, legs in the air Harris, and there's probably, I think there's one other one. Klobuchar. They would have to come off the campaign trail, and be stuck in 4 to 6 weeks of hearings. Bernie Sanders, also a senator. So you would have four and two of the four are top tier nominees right now. They would have to literally come off the campaign trail for 4 to 6 weeks, or however long it took. Now, generally, I wouldn't want this to go over to the Senate because there's so many anti-Trump Republicans. But the good part about that is they wouldn't dare turn on Trump because he's so popular with the base. He has over 90% approval with the base. They would be committing political suicide, and they might even be doing worse than that. So they're under tremendous pressure. So even though they'd like to screw Trump, they really can't. Okay? So it would kind of hold their feet to the fire. I see no way in this deal, from where we're standing right now, in this particular Inquisition, I see no way that Pelosi, Madam Botox, the Bug-Eyed Fool, or any of the rest of the Dems win on this deal. I can see them losing. I can see them losing badly, and I can see them losing very badly. That's the three choices they have. And as far as the Republicans are concerned, the most of the House Republicans so far have been very good. And it's because of the popularity of Trump. And I think the same thing would happen in the Senate, even though there's several anti-Trumpers over there, even like Mitt Romney, Willard Romney, and the nut from Maine, Susan Collins, and then crazy woman out in Alaska, Murkowski. They might be able to waver just because of where they're at. But the other 50 Republicans, I think, have to hold firm just because of how popular Trump is, and the blowback to them if they were to turn. And if Lindsey Graham, now he's gone on TV, and he said, if it comes to trial in the Senate, then I will call Biden, I will call the whistleblower and the whole 9 yards. Well, if that happens, and he could call any of these witnesses, like he might call Chalupa and all the rest. And now you're opening up this can of worms into the Democrats, what they were doing in 2016, which is going to be fully supported by the Horowitz report, which will be even more supported by Durham and Barr. So, again, that's the very bad. So you have the bad, you have the very bad, and you have the really, really bad. So, at this point, it's all good. Trump can't lose on this deal at all. And the Democrats have put themselves in this position. They've put themselves in this position. And it's really, I don't really, I understand why Madam Botox went down this road. It's because the political pressure that they promised quite a lot of these far left-wing Democrats ran on promising their base that they would impeach Trump if they got the House. So they get the House. And so they're kind of locked in. They almost have to impeach Trump. The problem is you have about 50 or so Democrats who ran in other districts where they said they wouldn't pursue impeachment, that they would work with the president and all these sorts of things. So either way Pelosi goes, she screws somebody. Now, I guess they feel that the majority of the screwing would happen if she did not go forward with an impeachment. Now, she knows it's not going to succeed, but she at least can say we did try, and maybe they will even impeach. But it's going to be a fail, and maybe that will satisfy their base to say, well, we did impeachment. It was a fail, but we did it. I just don't see how that works. I just see no way for the demo commies to win here. Not in the Inquisition, not in the election, not with anything. I don't see a clear path to any victories at all. Even a small victory, it's just not there. It's nothing but bad choices, bad outcomes. It's just how bad is Pelosi going to misplay this? But I think if they have another day, if the Inquisition tomorrow looks like it did yesterday, or I should say today, looks like it did yesterday, there'll be great pressure on Madam Botox to pull the plug on it. And that will be embarrassing, obviously. It will be a fail, but it will still be a hell of a lot better than pursuing it based on where it is now and trying to drop that, have a vote. If she has the vote, we just saw the 2-star witnesses. That's as good as it gets. It can only get worse. If she has an impeachment vote, what is the high crime and misdemeanor? Is she going to have a vote and have House full of Democrats vote against it because there's no high crime or misdemeanor? I mean, where is it? Where is it? It's not there. It's just not there. What a mess they have gotten themselves into on this one, man. Oh, God. Holy smoke, man. I have not seen a misplay this bad in a very, very long... I have to probably go back to Gingrich in 94. Or 93, I guess. You probably have to go back a pretty long way to see a speaker who's misplayed their hand as badly as Pelosi has done here. And I think we're going to know by Friday. Another day, or certainly 2 more days, like they had in the first day of the Inquisition hearings, it could get very, very bad. And that's good for us. Okay, so go check out that Nunes opening statement clip. It's well worth 5 minutes of your time. Now, at the same time we're talking about that, is yesterday we talked about the fact that a congressman, I think, from North Carolina, came out and said the name Eric Sharamella, associated him as the whistleblower. Now, today we had Rand Paul on WMAL radio. He, too, has now come out and said, hey, the whistleblower is Sharamella, and he needs to testify. Boom. So now we have a House Republican and a Senate Republican have both now come out, dropped the name, said he's the whistleblower. It's just a matter of time now before it's everybody already knows anyway. But it's just a matter of time now before more and more and more Republicans come out and start dropping the name associated with the whistleblower, and it's not too far beyond that Sharamella is going to have to testify. I don't see any way around it now. If they continue to push this thing, that they can't move forward in this in the Schiff Inquisition any farther after the fail they had today. If they have a fail like that again tomorrow, they cannot move on unless they bring in the whistleblower, the fake whistleblower himself. And if they bring him in, he gets destroyed. Again, there's no way out. This is a no way out deal here. Well, it looks like we had about a 2-week break from Mr. Potato Head. About a 2-week break, but now he's back. So yesterday he sent out a tweet, and he said, the impeachment process will reveal whether Republicans will tolerate corruption, dishonesty, and avarice in our nation's highest office. If so, America's political soul and global standing will be indelibly sullied. And Donald Trump will have destroyed the very heart of the GOP. He's obviously worried. He should be. He's going to prison. I absolutely guarantee it. Mr. Potato Head is hurting. Let's take a look at this little tweet. The impeachment process will reveal whether Republicans will tolerate corruption. Well, so far, Mr. Potato Head, the impeachment process has revealed the Republicans in the House 100% back the president, which means no, they don't go along with corruption. That's what's happening with your friends, Mr. Potato Head. They won't tolerate corruption like the Inquisition and the frame-up and the coup, nor the dishonesty or the avarice regarding the president. And he says America's political soul and global standing will be indelibly sullied. No, our political soul and global standing will be indelibly sullied if we don't out the coup plotters. One of the main coup plotters, of course, is you, Mr. Potato Head. And Donald Trump will have destroyed the very heart of the GOP. No, actually, Mr. Potato Head, he destroyed the GOP, the failing, losing, hapless GOP back in 2016. That's what he did. He had destroyed and broke down the old order. It was called the Bush Dynasty. He destroyed it broke it into a million pieces and reestablished a new Republican Party that actually is conservative with some libertarian leanings. He rescued the Republican Party, Mr. Potato Head. And it's the Demo Commie Party, Mr. Potato Head, that's going down in flames Well, the bug-eyed fool said at the end of the hearings that he does not know the identity of the whistleblower. Man, this guy's nuts. This guy's crazy. This guy's crazy, crazy. Yeah, so, and when he said that, Nunes and Jordan, just kind of looked at each other, chuckled. Like, you heard like chuckles going on after he said it. It was like they wouldn't like open laughing, but certainly, you could hear those sort of, chuckles. So the bug-eyed fool says he does not know the identity of the whistleblower. Everybody on the planet knows the identity of the whistleblower, including the bug-eyed fool, because his staff met with them. Everybody knows the identity of the whistleblower. And Schiff saying, "Oh, I don't know the identity." Yeah, right, man. This guy's nuts. This guy is loco, man. And that's who Madame Botox puts her hopes and dreams on this fool and the Penguin? Are you kidding me? They're a bag of nuts, man. They're a bag of nuts. We also get the other so-called star witness, the second guy, George Kent. Now his testimony actually did more damage to the demo commies, and specifically to the Bidens. He didn't do anything to advance the goals of the bug-eyed fool. No, all he did was really, the only thing he really said that really has mattered by the end of his testimony. Nothing he said was really of consequence, except for when he talked about the Bidens. And when he talked about the fact that he raised concerns about Hunter Biden's board position to Joe Biden's office in 2015. He also said there were discussions with him and his colleagues that there should be an investigation into Burisma. And who was it that stopped that? Joe Biden. It did more damage. George Kent did more damage to the Bidens than anything. He didn't do any damage to Trump. And he certainly didn't help the bug-eyed fool's cause any. Oh, man. You talk about a bad day. Man, that's a bad night in the ruts there. Night in the ruts, or right in the nuts, however you want to look at it. Yeah, so we're now hearing that the IG report is in the final phase. This is the phase where they bring in some of the people who are, I assume, targets of the report, and they and their lawyers get to take a look at it. Now, they can raise issue, but it doesn't necessarily mean the IG will remove anything. In fact, they usually won't remove anything. What they usually do is allow, if there's some issue that the person has, the IG will include whatever they want to say to respond to what's in the report. But then the IG gets to counter that response and respond to the response. And that goes in the report too. So usually nothing happens. So anyway, this process has generally in the past been known to take about 10 business days. So that process has already began. So we can expect now people are putting the circling the date on the calendar as being either the day before or the day after Thanksgiving. And I would agree with that. I think it will most likely be the day after Thanksgiving, because that's the big travel day. People typically, I think it's on Thanksgiving on a Thursday, and it's the following day people usually take off work, and that's the day that they're usually traveling back. So, and it's typically a dead news day. There's nothing really going on the day after Thanksgiving. It's usually a dead news day, pretty much. So that's typically when you want to release something like this. So if I had to make a bet, I would say it's probably going to be the day after Thanksgiving. And I believe once that happens, I believe we are going to see a swift game. It's going to be a game-changing event. It's a big report. It's going to take several weeks probably for people to fully go through it and digest everything that's there. But initially, within 24 hours, there'll already be major bombshells, and they will continue to fall week after week after week. And if there's any future that Madame Botox is thinking about for the Inquisition to continue past Thanksgiving into Christmas, at the same time they're trying to pull off the Inquisition, and every single day more bombshells are being dropped from the IG report that's just been released, I think it's going to have a serious numbing effect on what they're trying to do with the impeachment. So I think that we've just about this should be the beginning of the unraveling of the coup plot right here. This is, I think, the first step in the beginning of the end, the beginning of the unraveling of what really did happen. And I think the demo commies and all the coup plotters are going to find themselves in a fully defensive posture starting the day after the release of the IG report. Not that I have all that much confidence in Huckleberry Horowitz, because I happen to know that he is a Democrat. His wife is a very connected Democrat. Horowitz even donated to an anti-Trumper to his campaign, a guy running, a Democrat running on an anti-Trump campaign. So, but the problem that IG Horowitz, the custodian, the problem that Huckleberry has is that AG Barr, AG Barr is sitting there, and the report has to go through him. So he's not going to be able to drop a report on AG Barr that Barr knows is bullshit. It's not going to work. So, you know, I don't expect Horowitz is going to connect any dots or go for a conspiracy or anything like that, but he has no choice to point out all the problems that Barr and Durham already know exist, and all the things they know that happened. So he's really kind of locked in. There's really not much he can do. And then, of course, he's going to be called in to testify in front of the Senate Judiciary Committee with Lindsey Graham, and we can hope that he asks some good questions. He'll be the only one, unfortunately, but you know, we'll give it our best shot. Well, what do we have here? It looks like we're learning a little bit more about the chain of command and who Sharamella was reporting to. And so it looks like Sharamella was reporting directly to his boss, who was, of course, Charles Kupchan. And, of course, we know that Charles Kupchan is a deep stater connected to a lot of other deep staters. But most importantly, he has a very long-standing and has very deep ties with the Rotten Reverend Clinton's hatchet man, Sidney Blumenthal. Once again, every single spoke in the wheel connects to the hub, which is the Rotten Reverend Clinton. Whether it's Mifsud or Downer or whoever you want to name, Brennan, you go down the list of the people who were instigators in the coup plot, they all have a connection to the Rotten Reverend Clinton. So, Sharamella, his boss was Kupchan, who has deep Clinton connections through Sidney Blumenthal, and Kupchan reported directly to Susan Rice. Susan Rice. So all these activities that Sharamella was involved in, inviting Chalupa to the White House, inviting these anti-Trump Ukrainians to the White House, running all the plots and schemes he was doing, all the leaking, he works under Susan Rice. And the go-between is his boss, Kupchan. But certainly the things that Sharamella would have been involved in, being fed to Kupchan, would have worked their way up the chain of command to his boss, Susan Rice. In other words, Susan Rice would know all about Sharamella, all about these visits to the White House by Ukrainian officials, all about the shenanigans that Sharamella would have been up to. Susan Rice knows it all. Now, that's a problem for Susan Rice, because we just had this story about a week ago where this deep dive on John Durham, and I read it in the Washington Examiner, but I don't think that was the original source of the story, but everybody recopied the story because it was, you know, really a deep dive into Durham, which is what a lot of people have been wanting. And it's in that story is where they point out that one of the things that really sent up John Durham's antennae is when he looked at exactly what Nunes looked at, all the unmasked names of people who should never have been unmasked, could only have been purely political, and there was no justification for these names of these Americans to be unmasked. They were all people around Trump and his campaign. That is something that apparently is one of the motivating factors which caused Durham to request Barr to now allow him to pursue things from this point forward as a criminal investigation. One of the main things that set that off and brought that into play was when he looked at all the unmaskings, and that would have been Susan Rice. And remember, Samantha Powers says that a lot of the unmaskings that were supposedly done under her name were just done under her name without her knowledge, and that she doesn't know who did those unmaskings and who used her name. He's going to get to the bottom of that, and I think you're going to find Susan Rice. She is absolutely 100% going to be having a meeting, going to be having a date with a grand jury in the not too distant future. Well, with a jury, I should say. Grand jury has already been convened, and I think have already, yeah, I'm sure it's already been convened, because they wouldn't come out and publicly announce that they've moved from a review to a criminal investigation unless they'd already gone to the grand jury. Because typically, the prosecutor or U.S. attorney who's acting as a prosecutor, before they go public and announce that something has been moved into a criminal investigation, they usually will go, before they make that public, they'll go to the grand jury, present the evidence, and make sure they got the stamp of approval from the grand jury. Otherwise, they would look kind of, stupid if they were to publicly let it be known that they were having a criminal investigation, and then they go to a grand jury, and the grand jury finds, not enough evidence. Then they kind of have to go back on it, and then they look kind of stupid. And John Durham is not the type of seasoned professional prosecutor that would make that kind of an error. So I think it's obvious at this point that a grand jury has been convened already. It's done and over. He's presented his case. They've said, yes, there's enough evidence to proceed, and that's why we are where we are now. The actual people like Susan Rice, they're actually going to be facing a jury unless they want to cut a deal. Unless they want to cut a deal. Will Susan Rice give up Barack Hussein Obama? Will Susan Rice give up Obama? That's their only deal. Durham doesn't need Susan Rice to give up Samantha Power or Valerie Jarrett or Loretta Lynch or anyone else. Peter Strzok, he doesn't need Susan Rice for that. Those people are all below her. There's only one person above Susan Rice: Obama. Will Susan Rice go to the big house to cover for Barack Hussein Obama? We're going to find out. Jess McIntosh. Ever heard of her? I don't think so. That's good. I hadn't heard of her either until now. Jess McIntosh was the former director of communications for the Rotten Reverend Clinton in 2016. She was recently on CNN. She went on CNN and ripped Joe Biden. Quid pro quo Joe. She says that Biden has issues with gendered language when talking about his Democratic rivals. She said that we need a nominee that gets it. And clearly, Joe Biden does not. Here's the Rotten Reverend's former director of communications going out on CNN. Now, she didn't say she's out there speaking on behalf of the Rotten Reverend Clinton, but we all know she is. So, essentially, this is the Rotten Reverend Clinton, again, launching an attack on Quid Pro Quo Joe through a proxy, which is the way Clinton always operates. She always uses proxies. But everyone knows that she uses proxies, and everyone knows where this is coming from. This person, Jess McIntosh, would have no interest as a Democrat attacking the establishment frontrunner. That's not something you would do if you wanted to maintain and have a future career in the Democratic Party, which she does. She wants to, and she's a relatively young woman, probably in her 30s. She would like, for the next 30, 40 years, to be able to find positions of employment within the realm of the Democratic Party, the Democratic National Committee, or some Democratic candidate running for president or serving in some capacity. When you come out and rip the front runner for the party, you probably don't do anything to help your chances. So there must be some reason that she would do this, and she must have somebody's blessing pretty high up the chain, meaning like Tom Perez, the head of the DNC. Add it up. It's simple math, my friends. By the way, Biden was out doing a speech yesterday, and I could swear he said the word F-U-C-K. I'll just spell it. Sounds like he said, you got to watch the little video clip. It's only like 5 seconds, but it's worth it because I could swear he says the word F-U-C-K. So he's answering a question about Khashoggi, you know, and he says that Khashoggi was in fact he was butchered. He goes, yeah, Khashoggi was in fact he was butchered. I don't know what he was getting ready to say, but I'm pretty sure he was going to say he was effing something. Whacked, killed, whatever. But he was getting ready to drop the F-bomb, and he caught himself. Khashoggi was in fact he was butchered. Man, what a show. I told you this was going to be fun, you guys. It's about to become a lot of fun. We've had a lot of tough days on TowerGate, man. It was a lot of tough days. Especially throughout 2017, 2018. Some very dark days, some very long days, some very difficult days, a lot of frustration. The whole 9 yards, we've all been through this together for a very long time. And I think it's about high time that we get to enjoy the other side of this thing and to be able to laugh and smile and celebrate as we move forward from this point out. Not that it's going to be all downhill skiing, but certainly the guns have been turned. There's no question that we are no longer on total defense. We are now on offense, and it's the Inquisitors and the coup plotters who are now on full defense. And I do believe that the day after the Horowitz report is released, this thing's going to look and feel a whole lot different, and it's going to become a lot more fun. And can you imagine the fun that we're going to have during the 2020 election? Oh my goodness gracious. Regardless of who Trump runs against. Look at the field. Everyone there is a freaking clown. Do you know the type of laughs that we're all going to have in the months to come? Stick around, my friends. There's something that's been kind of pop around there for a couple of weeks. I've never talked about it, but it's a fantastic idea, and it looks like they're actually going to do it. So I'm not sure. There's 3 or 4 members of Congress behind this. I think one may be Tom Cotton. Don't quote me on that. I think he may be one. But there's 3 or 4 Republicans who've been trying to make this happen, and it's something I think can happen through the executive branch. And that is to move all these bureaucrats out of D.C. and to put them in the heartland of America. And so we are now learning that the first agency that's now going to be relocated out of D.C. and into the heartland is the Bureau of Land Management. 250 employees who reside in Washington, D.C. are going to be given the choice. You're moving out of D.C., you're going to be moving to Montana or Idaho or Ohio or North Dakota, and that's where your job is going to be, and if you don't like it, find another job. They're going to try to move the bureaucrats completely out of the swamp and put them out in the heartland, where they actually have to associate with real people. That is a fantastic move. You talk about draining the swamp. That is a brilliant way to drain the deep state swamp. We're getting a poll now that's showing that Booty Boy is tops in Iowa. That's a Monmouth poll, so I'd take it with a grain of salt. But there's no question he's moving up because what do you got? Warren, Sanders, Biden, and the Rotten Reverend? Booty's starting to look pretty good. We're also learning that deposition that was given to Stephen Rowe by Mr. Misfit, the way that went down is that Misfit had been hiding out in a small little village outside Rome and living in a place owned by some guys at Link University. He traveled by train so he wouldn't have to show his passport or ID. He traveled by train to Zurich, Switzerland, where Stephen Rowe's office was, and that is where he gave his recorded testimony to Stephen Rowe. Well. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll be back tomorrow with more TowerGate. We'll see you guys. Bye.